I have the 3 to 5 shift. Let's just be honest there. And he's not happy with the people who are in the earlier shift right now. So I might have to go out earlier. But so what I just wanted to talk about today was the structure of FRN's database, what we ended up doing and what we can do with it as a result of kind of how we did it. So I created this document. Robert, you can send it out to people. I'm fine with it. We have a database that has multiple files, which are linked by a couple things. One, people have a client number, and that is unique. That gives us a count of how many unduplicated families we have served. And then we have case numbers for our families. When somebody is served in a specific program, they are assigned a case number, and they only have one case number at a time, right? We don't serve them in multiple ways. But if somebody is working with our early start staff and then 2 years later comes back and works with another program, that way we can kind of distinctly look at the different kinds of efforts that we made in the different places. So that's why we made the decision. This is just our new client, this is our new client forms, probably all really familiar to everybody, probably all collect similar things. Name, date of birth, primary diagnosis, which also has places to fill things in. Then the names of the caregivers, the languages people speak, their preferred language, of course. And the one thing I just wanted to highlight on this is one of the things we found really useful is we added whether it's okay to text people. And that's been a very useful thing because some people don't want to be text. So we do ask that in the beginning. And we also ask whether it's okay to leave messages on a phone. A lot of our families share phones with people. So this way we can make sure we respect the family's confidentiality. So we have one of these for every family that we work on. And then, as I said, we will have others that will be cases. In this case, I just pulled one person's things without the identifying information. We've worked with this family both in our early start program, and we're now working with them in our community empowerment program. But by having 2 cases, I can see that I'm counting that family for both those programs. It helps me get around the duplicated and unduplicated numbers, which I find are really tricky. Otherwise, this has been a good solution for us to have cases versus client numbers, just to let you know. And then attached to each case, linked by their case numbers, are 3 other sets of information. One are service logs where we record contacts with families, and that can be everything from support conversations to attending a training to finding out where they are in their referral to the regional center. There are all kinds of things that go on. So we have these service logs. They're actually a bit longer. This is just the summary that tells me when a particular person was talking to a family. This was an early start service log, and so we had a gap following the early start. They're a little off, but not horrible. But it might be something that I would follow up with staff if I saw the gap of 5 months rather than 3. But it gives me an idea of what was going on with the family, and I can click on any of those and get information for this, which is the date that it happened, who they contacted, why they contacted them, and they put in a follow-up date. And I've found that follow-up date is really good for the staff, because we can print things out and says who you should follow up with this week. And they get a list of all the case numbers and know what they're supposed to do. We also have mode of contact, text, phone, in person, etc. And the result of that contact, whether they were able to successfully contact somebody or not. And so the follow-up date and the follow-up step are just ways for the staff to help keep track of some of the things that they're doing, so they know what the next step is. I have found that immensely helpful, especially for new staff, for them to fill that out. And then on a weekly basis, I have Salesforce generate reports for them that say, this is what you're doing this week. These are the parents you need to call. So that's some of the things that we do. We also track referrals, which are specific things that we are following up on, right? And that's how we define them. If it's information only, that means we are just giving them the information. They don't need any others. But if it is, otherwise we mark it, whether it's been completed, whether it's pending, or whether somebody was ineligible for a service, because of course that happens. And just to show you what the content of what we collect for referrals, we have them categorized. I think we have 35 categories of referrals, so that I can pull things out pretty easily. So if I want to know school district referrals, IEPs, I can pull that out. I can pull out how many do we attend. I can pull out all kinds of things from the mixture of these different pieces. The referral type and the referral status, as I said, we're tracking them. So we want to know whether they're pending or done, and then the case that it's attached to. And then the last thing that we did, and we put this in explicitly for Early Start, is we have a thing that just says what information and packets did we send that particular family. And that was good for us to know what have we mailed out. And so just to show you, these are the kinds of things that you can do. We have a long list of different kinds of packets, and people just click them, and then I can pull up which packets are being sent. So this has been, it's a pretty comprehensive system. There are some good points and there are some bad points. There are some things that annoy me and there are things that are great. But I think it's been really good for helping staff keep on top of their cases, as well as giving me kind of complete information or close to complete information about the various things that staff are doing, as well as what families are getting as a result of our work. So that's our database.
Thank you. Any questions?
Of course,
Go
I
ahead,
have a
Crystal.
question, but I don't want to. I want to leave space for other people.
Feel free.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Eileen, for going through all of that. Question in regards to client's number versus case number, and
Sure.
I'm assuming you mentioned that the case numbers helps with the duplication. And I'm assuming it also is definitely not linked to their UCI that's generated through the regional center. It's just something that you just, the system generates on
System
its own.
generates. Yep.
Okay. Okay. I think
I mean, if you wanted to keep UCI, you could. You know, Salesforce is a pretty difficult program to get into unless you've got the credentials, but we don't keep the UCI. We might keep that. Staff tend to have a face sheet file that they keep in their secure HIPAA files that usually has the UCI on that one.
Okay.
As well as their, because we do reporting for Medi-Cal and get Medi-Cal reimbursement. So it also has their Medi-Cal number most of the time.
So I can imagine, like, because we are regional center affiliated, we use UCIs, and we also use the regional center's database for a lot of activities, but not to this point to draw out and report for reporting information. But because then if you pull up one client or one family, then all of the case numbers and client numbers associated with that family would also show, or you have to pull up information by the case number or client number?
If you pull it up by the client number, all the cases will show.
Oh, okay. So it's still that main, that association. Okay.
But you could pull up by their name or their parent's phone number. You can really search on any of those things in this primary, you know, that first thing that I showed you. All of those are searchable. So I can pull everybody, you know, I can't remember this family's name. I'm going to pull everybody who speaks Arabic that we've served in the last 3 months. Okay. I can pull that, right? Okay. So it, you know, it's learning to manipulate the data, which I think is the harder part, but you can't manipulate what you don't have. So it's planning on what might I want to pull, right?
Exactly.
To think about it. And I'm just sharing to show you what me and the person who programmed it for us decided we would want to pull, right? That's really what we were after.
And thank you. And then for the follow-up information or the follow-up kind of tickler that you create within the case, is there a tickler per the user ID that also kind of shows up, or does it have to really just be generated by a report?
They're all assigned to a staff member, and the managers have the ability to change the assignment of staff member, and then they can, I have set reports for many of the managers, not all of them, that says, give me the report of, let's say Samina's cases. Who does she have to talk to this week? And then I can print out all the follow-up ones for her for the next 2 weeks.
But the staff person on their user side, their account side, can also see what has been what their follow-ups are as well.
Yep.
Oh, okay. And
Yep.
then, sorry, last question.
It depends. For Salesforce, it's about who you share reports with. And so people's individual reports, obviously, I'm going to share with the individual people, right, as well as their manager.
Okay.
Because we want to have transparency. And when I generate that report, I have it sent directly to them so they can look at it. What really was remarkable was we had a couple of people who weren't great about that 3-month follow-up for early start. And when they got the tickler, right, and they started knowing that I knew when they weren't being done, because I also said, if it hasn't been done, flag me the next week. So I split them into kind of due this week and overdue.
Okay.
Suddenly she started making tons of calls.
I bet.
Little bit of a reminder,
I mean, yes,
life gets in the way, and
Yeah.
and you want to make it as easy as possible for your staff to be responsive. That's how I think about it.
Absolutely. And then I just had a last question regarding the referral tracking. Is
Mhm.
that a separate entry action than just the service log in general?
Yes.
Okay.
So the service log might say I've made a referral to the school district, but then I expect them to also put in a referral to the school district, because when I'm doing reporting, I'm going to look at, have they, we do follow up. I know not everybody does, but we do follow up. So I need to know whether they followed up. And so I was doing a report for DDS last week, and I looked and I saw a bunch of pending, and they should have been done because they were 6-month Lanterman Act, and they should have been done. So I said, can you call all these families and make sure that whether or not they've gotten the service? So you can indicate, in the way that it's structured, where you are in the process as well. So you can also say, for a staff person, just give me all their pending referrals so that they'll know that they need to follow these people up. I mean, once you've gotten kind of the set in there, Salesforce is incredibly flexible in the way that you can put things together to create reports that are really helpful for your staff and for you as a manager. I mean, both.
Got it. Thank you.
I have a question. So then yours is set up by the child, not necessarily the parent?
Yes, my file, and that's an excellent observation, Luca,
Okay.
because I think you have to make that choice of
Okay.
how are you going to organize yours. Because we had families with multiple children, we did not want to, we count by the work we do per child, right? As opposed to the work as the family as a whole.
Yep.
So in the case that we're doing, say, twins, and we're doing work for both of them, we might put it in one or the other's file. We don't double count, right? But we would only put it in one person's file. But we do count by the child. That is a decision, and I'm so glad you brought it up, that you all have to make, because it makes a huge difference in how you count.
And then the other piece is, where do you have the section for language? Is
That's right here on the new client, preferred language.
Oh, got it.
Right.
Okay.
And so we tend to have here the languages we speak, right? So that makes it easy for us to assign people. So that's when our drop-down menu. And then we have other, right, in cases where we don't have the language for the particular person. But that's why we have preferred language for this, so that we know that's what people prefer. And we also have an other in case, because some of our South Asian families, they're remarkable. They know like 4 languages. So we might have 3, in the other, and somebody will say, oh, I speak that one, So that's sometimes what happens.
And then like my last question is, so then your database also includes like phone calls, and also like if they attend one of your groups?
Yep. That is a pull down.
So you're able to document not just phone, but face-to-face
as well as packets,
activities?
right, and packets and materials sent out or emailed.
Okay.
Because I wanted to try to capture all of it, because I was losing
And
all of
how
that.
do you do that? Do you get it by sign-in sheets that parents sign in and then you add it into your database?
Often that's what I'll do. I have an administrative assistant, so she'll go through and look up if well, I take the sheets from this. We usually do sign up now through Eventbrite or Zoom, right?
Okay.
And then
Okay.
we'll follow up with the families and say, if they're not in our database, we'll reach out to them because it can then become a form of outreach. You know, hi, we see you attended the training. Yay, we're so glad you came. We just want to check in to see if there's anything else you need from us. You know, please contact so-and-so if you do, sort of thing. So it allows us to do that. So as she goes through, she'll create new cases for people who are not in it right now, or I'll create them, whoever happens to be putting them in. But it's a great way to capture that. And it also, you know, I think we all as a group lose a lot of contacts that are in our trainings because those are contacts. They might be group contacts, but they're contacts. And we often don't count them. And then we wonder why we don't have as many one-on-one contacts when we have really tons of them. We just, they've occurred in our trainings and things like that. So yeah. And again, you can do that's a drop down or a check. We've been doing tons of, we're a diaper depot for First Five right now. So we're doing tons of diaper wipes, PPE, and we're also working with CalFresh and food giveaways. And so now we have check boxes for those if they're, you know, participating in those. And those are great things as you're, you know, doing your reports or you're talking to the community of saying kind of, in addition to the other work we're doing, here's how we're responding, you know, to the COVID crisis, and here are the specific things that we've done, here are our numbers. And those I think are really impressive to be able to say to somebody, look, we've given out at this point like 120 devices, either computers or tablets. We've given out literally thousands of diapers to over 350 families. I mean, all that kind of stuff helps.
And then,
I think.
And one last question.
Sure.
So then when do you say your case is closed? Like, how do you close your case?
Well, that is a debate among the managers right now. So you're just like, you're batting 1,000 with really good questions here, Lupe. Some of my managers want to review them before they're closed, right? And some of them don't. So it's been, you know, we have a checkbox that says, is this an active case? And that's the note for closure. Is the active case, when you click that, it's no longer an active case and the date goes in, that's the closure. That's how I can kind of keep my counts correct in a, you know, in a time frame. Some managers don't want staff to be able to do that, others do. So we haven't come to an agreement on that one. In our work with Help Me Grow, where we use a similar database, our contract stipulates a manager only can close the case. So that's what we're used to right now. And we will probably be moving toward that because it is a way of having quality assurance, right? If you review a case, if the manager has to review the case, you get an idea of what's going on. And like I was reviewing some cases last week and I saw somebody made a referral, it was just not appropriate. And, you know, because I was looking at it, I took it as an opportunity to train the individual. So I called them and said, hey, you got 10 minutes. Let me talk to you about this particular referral and why I wouldn't have made it to this family. So I think it's a great opportunity to do that kind of continuous quality improvement with your staff when you review and close them.
Great. Lori has a question.
Yes, actually I have a couple of questions. I'm intrigued by setting it up by the child. And I understand that you're saying you have to kind of make that decision up front. But I'm curious as to, there are times that we don't have the child's name, or we're working with a parent who, you know, has just found out that their unborn child is got Down syndrome or some other genital diagnosis or genetic diagnosis. And I'm just very curious as to how you get around that.
Baby boy and baby girl, right, is the names of a lot of kids in those things because we don't have a name, right?
Okay. And you can have multiple baby boys and baby girls.
Yeah, you know, we have multiples of so many names, you know.
So are you ever putting any, so we would want to use this for like all of the contacts in our agency. And so, you know, our 0 to 3 would be one area, but we would also want to keep track of professionals and
Yep.
And that sort of thing. So I guess I'm answering my own question. Then we would not want to go by child name. We'd want to go by the adult, correct?
Well, you could have a box that says, you know, instead of next to the child's name, you can have a checkbox that says, this is a professional, right?
Okay.
And just check that, and then no child name appears. It depends on what you're forced. So like when I was just printing this for you, you can see these are forced, right? These are forced fields. That's why they got upset when I was printing. So but whoever you're going to work with to design this, you know, and Salesforce has lots of people who will work with you. And for 1 year, they gave us a grant, and we didn't pay them hardly anything. So, you know, I think there are cheaper ways of doing this, but which boxes are required is going to be completely up to you. So is the child's name required? It's going to be completely up to you, but you can create one for a professional. We don't track professionals in this database, but I could definitely see something like this easily just putting a checkbox and then having a service log for the professionals, right? Maybe you just wouldn't offer referrals for the professionals. You just would offer a service log of how many times you talk to them. I know that that's something I've been asked for, you know, how many times did you talk to doctors in the community? You know, and counting that is a pain in the butt, but if I stuck in their names, it would be much easier. So again, it's going to depend on your contracts and what you're being required to do. And, you know, but I think it's infinitely flexible. We made some good decisions in this. We made some not great decisions in this, but I think overall, the person who did it for us did really an outstanding job.
So I'm curious, you've mentioned now a couple of things. At the beginning, you said there are some advantages and disadvantages. And then you said just now that, you know, you've done some things right and some things not so right. Can you expand on what the disadvantages are and kind of where you feel like you didn't do things quite right in setting it up?
Active cases for a 6-month period. Active cases for a month are easy to count in the way we've set it up. Active cases in a 6-month period are harder, right, to set up. I have to do some machinations, like an active case has to be defined as one that has a service log that was made within that 6 months, right? That's an okay way of defining it, but I would have liked an easier way to count than that, right? Because so I have to go through and do things like that. So that's my biggest complaint about what we've learned to do. And I would say for some of the managers, it's a little overwhelming at first. Once you start creating reports for them and they just can rely on reports, and there's tons of reports you can make that are customized, then they really like it. But at first, you know, kind of looking at it feels a little intimidating for them. It's not as warm and fuzzy, right, as some of the other ones are. But we once I've done that, so, you know, those would be the two things that I would say are the drawbacks from my perspective. Is I would have liked a better way to count everybody who was touched in 6 months. I have to kind of do a little bit of playing with the data to get that to cough that up. And I would have liked a program that produced reports more easily than this one does. But saying that, once I've learned how to do it, they're really easy. It's just, there's a big hump, you know, and once you get through the hump, you're great.
Thank you, Eileen. In the interest of time, I just want to move on to Elena. I've made you the co-host, and I know Eileen will stay on as long as she can, but thank you for sharing.
Thank you. So I want to say, so my name is Elena Bramble. I'm the program director. This is Jennifer. She's our data specialist. And she actually helped build our database back in 2014.
Yes.
And then left us for a while and kind of left us hanging. And so we snagged her back just this year, and we're super happy about it. We have a little bit different function for Salesforce in that we really don't have to do a lot of case management. That's just not a service that we provide here, but we do run a lot of reports. So what we did is we went in. So first of all, let me say that we have a starter pack from Salesforce for nonprofits that is free to us and comes with 10 free licenses. So we use that. There are some of our staff that share a license because they do the same work and work with the same families, and it's just not necessary for them to have their own. So they have a single login between two or three people. I think that the way that we use ours, well, what I was going to say was that we work with a separate agency. I don't think they're not,
They're consultant.
a consultant agency called Sputnik. And they helped us build it, and they give us recommendations based upon our need and that sort of thing. And I don't know, Eileen, if that's who you also use or if there are other people that do it. Or
I was lucky enough that my assistant director was a programmer, so she did it.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I was lucky.
Okay. So yeah, so we do have a cost associated with Sputnik. We pay for so many hours per year, and sometimes we use it all and sometimes we don't. Now that Jennifer's here, we are using it all because we are kind of redesigning in the moment. There's an upgrade that we are putting into place, and in the process, making sure that we have all our data points met. So I'm going to let Jennifer talk about it because she's in the middle of it right now. I will share my screen. She did this little PowerPoint for our parent consultants. And well, we skip a couple of slides that are not, oops, that's not it. Okay, can you see families?
You may have to do a new share.
Okay, that's what I was afraid of.
I think we're seeing your teams.
Oh, really? Okay, well, let me take it back over there. It changed both my screens so crazy.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, we see
Okay,
it
now,
now.
do you
Data
see
driven?
my PowerPoint?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so she did this. What we put in this, perfect. This PowerPoint was more all of the data points that we needed per each of our contracts or grants. So she outlined it to explain to the parent consultants how it was going to look and make sure that we had all the information as far as data that we need to collect. So it doesn't show the actual Salesforce screen, but it does give you an idea of the data that we're putting in there. And then the reports that we can run through this data. And Jennifer can give you more information on that. So this is Jennifer.
Hi. So coming back into Salesforce with all of the changes that we had since I had left, I had to really look at each of our grants. So we have PTI, FRC, and FBC, plus what our board members would like to see on an annual basis. So it's gathering that information and putting it sort of like what I think of in buckets. So the first that we have is the families. And so we have the family, the child, and the case. And you start with the family and you get the information that you want to enter for the family, which is the demographic information. So you have the address, making sure that's always up to date is so important. So even when you get phone calls from your families, always make sure that their information is correct, because we have families that we've been seeing since I left, and I was here, since 2004. So a lot of information I notice is not up to date. So yeah, you just make sure that that's a continual thing. But you have the language, the race, if they're referred from somebody, and the family role. So those are items that we report on. So that is the family bucket. So you want to make sure you have that information listed when you are going forward to and creating your database. There's really no form that you can use to help convey what you need. So you got to think, like I put everything on an Excel spreadsheet. I put families and I put all the information that I needed. So from there, I listed the child or the person with a disability. And of course, we need the date of birth is always important because that gives our age range for all of our reporting needs for the FEC and FRC and PTI. The school district of residence, the disability category is listed there. And some of these things had changed since I had left. So coming in, I had to make sure all of these things were up to par and making sure that if I needed to update that, then, you know, changing everything out. So, and it's fairly easy to do. And after being gone for 5 years, I had to try to use my memory as best as possible because I was on a different database that was not as friendly as Salesforce. I really enjoy this database because it's something that I can do. And I'm not a programmer, but I can do a lot of the changes necessary, not to the degree that Sputnik can do, but I know that I can, you know, make those changes without having to go to the consultant. So that's cost effective on our end. So, and then we have the disability information, which is listed here. And from there, we report on the cases. So the status of the case.
So let me interrupt real quick. So I heard some conversation around this, so I just want to put in here.
Mm-hmm.
Unlike Eileen, where she uses the case and all of the information for that child or that family, rather than that, we have a household, and so our household contains the child and the parent, and then underneath that household with the person, whichever person you're talking to, oftentimes the parent, is a case that we then connect to the child. So it looks a little bit different with that because we don't have to do case management in that way. But this way, it gives us all of this information within the case. And then again, with our reporting needs, we can extrapolate this through a report and say, well, we talked to, 20 families about the 504, or we talked to other families with ADR and that sort of thing. So our umbrella looks a little bit different than what Eileen was showing. So the database can be used in different ways, which is really good since we all do things differently. And it's just a matter of our people at Sputnik are really great about, okay, well, what is it you're wanting to collect? And then problem solving with us and trying to figure out how that would best work for you in Salesforce and where the buttons all need to be in the drop down menus and all that kind of stuff. So I just want to put that out there as now Jennifer goes and explains what's in the case.
Right. Okay, thanks. Yeah, and that is so true. And like this year, we have a contract with one of our counties and trying to show the process of the ADR, if we're effective with the families, that they're not going to the highest level. We want to keep everything at the lowest level of decision making and trying to do that without going to the law in that aspect. So that is something you can also see the trend of, which is a great thing, because that way it might open doors for us with other counties as well. So that's just a piece of information which I think is helpful as well. So let's see, where was I? So this is all of the information that we gather for our cases that is a potentially either that we report on or information that can show a trend and help us be a data-driven agency. So And we do collect information on the professionals, organizations, which the professionals are at, and then our campaigns, which is our trainings. And we are partnering with PTI right now and providing information on all of our training. So it's a very easy process for them. And so this is kind of an overview of each of those items of what the information that I was looking for to gather reports on. So, and going into that a little bit further is the professionals. The professional type, the contact information, and then the link to the affiliation. So an organization is created. So if it's first 5, you would list that organization into Salesforce, and then the contacts would be listed as a professional contact and then linked to that organization. And then we can track cases for collaboration between each of those organizations, or if they are helping support one of our families, we can link them to the family. So it works out really well for that, and we're able to get the reports that we need for our funding. And then what's in the organization is kind of an overview of the types that you can list. We have, this is not information that we report on really for our funding, but for our board members. They like to have who we're collaborating with and where they're located or what type of specialty they are. And then the campaign. So we have lots of trainings that we provide, and they want to know how it's delivered, the information where it was at, or where the attendee was from, and what type of attendee were they? Were they a family? Were they youth or a professional? So that has been updated this year, and we're really trying to hone in on getting the information needed, because we're doing everything virtually like everybody else, and creating the campaigns into Salesforce. We can list who was a family attendee, who was, the youth attendee, and a professional, and then who was a no-show. And we can say that we offered all of these trainings, and we had 15 registrants, and half of them were families, and then the others were no-show. But at least we can track that information, and that might help us with marketing and things like that, of how can we better get the attendance that we really need. So it's been a tough year. So and then there's that. So I hope that was helpful. And just if you're starting out with wanting to create the database with Salesforce, is just being able to see it in buckets. So whatever that is, and I can help. If you ever have any questions, please feel free to reach out to Elena, and she can, send me an email, and I can answer any questions.
Yeah, we can. I want to say too, that because I heard a little bit of conversation about it with Eileen. She was talking about sending information to the manager so the manager could see a report and that sort of thing. Jennifer does all the report running, although our staff has the ability to run the report. It just takes a little bit of training and showing how to put all the filters in. But what Jennifer all reported on was all about our reporting capabilities. I will say that we use Salesforce also for internal tracking, so to speak. So we are able to, any one of us is able to go into Salesforce and look up by name of family. So say a family calls, the person who was helping them is not here today, but we can tell them, well, hold on, we'll get someone to help you right away. And that person can then go into Salesforce, look at the notes of the previous parent consultant, or the one that is currently holding that particular case, and just read real quick what was offered or what was discussed or what the problem was. and how they may have informed that family, and then go back to the phone and be able to say, okay, I got a little bit of information on what you've been working with Monica on. You know, how can I help you today? And let's see if I can get some better clarification for you. So our database is also used internally for that way, in helping each other support each other when one is absent or one is busy and on the line and it's an urgent need by a family. So we kind of are able to use it in that way. Right now we're working on way to, when a case is transferred, went from age to age, because our consultants are divided by grade ranges. And so when a kid transitions from early start into part B, then we have a way to track the transition from one parent consultant to another. And that helps us know, you know, she hands that case over, basically, here's the last thing we worked on, here's the family. That new parent consultant can then contact the family to let them know, hey, this is where I'm working. So that's another way we use it. So I don't know if you have any questions or if that's information you were looking for. Hopefully that's helpful.
I have a question. Do
Yeah.
you have paper? Do you use paper at all, like for your notes, or is it everything on the computer? And I forgot to ask that for you too.
Well, I have created a log sheet with all of the required information needed for our reporting, plus a note section. So some people have a hard time, you know, working and talking with a person and then entering it, or they're not in front of their computer and they're with somebody, you know, at a meeting somewhere. So that sheet is, I created a sheet for them to take with them so they can write everything down. And then they'll at least have all the pertinent information that we need for our data requirements, and they can enter it at a different time.
Yeah, so some of our ladies, most of them actually like to take hand notes first, and they keep a file at their desk on that particular family, but they enter all their notes into Salesforce, at least a summary of their notes, because if it gets too detailed, it can take a lot of time. So if they write an email, they'll copy the important parts of the email into the notes section of Salesforce. They keep their handwritten notes generally until that case is resolved, and then they shred everything. So that, but everything has been either scanned, because you can scan things straight into Salesforce from our copy machine. So you can scan that in, or you can write in the note section what they did. And then all the hard copies, so that we don't have to store all of that, which we used to have to do. All of that goes in the shredder, and then everything is housed in Salesforce and easily accessed by anybody. Or if that family comes back and needs more help, then they know the history of it all. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I have a question. Thank you for doing this, by the way. It's very informative. I'm Janet. I'm from Parents Helping Parents. I wanted to know what kind of training you gave the staff and about how long it took them to feel comfortable and confident with the new system.
Well, when we first implemented Salesforce, you know, it took a couple good trainings, because I think there's two parts. There's understanding what the requirements are that you're looking for in them entering. So having them well versed in your data requirements is important. So it almost becomes second nature. And that is something that I'm doing right now, because the staff that is here didn't get that training. So I'm like, every week I'm in there telling them, this is what we need. This is what we need. And then there's the aspect of learning where it is in the database. So it's kind of a two-part. So I did a training on every funder that we have in their requirements. And then I gave this training that I just showed you of what it looks like separated out. So where the specific information goes. And then after we upgrade to Lightning, which is it's a higher platform in Salesforce, then I will give a training on where all this information fits within Salesforce.
So
it's kind of a hard, I can't say how long, but.
Well, I was here when we first transitioned over to Salesforce as a parent consultant. And of course, your trainees are only as good as their trainer, right? So in that respect, how long will it take? It depends on how well they understand or how well it's explained. I will say that Jennifer gave us probably a half an hour or so, a couple of different times, and we were able to catch on pretty quick. I will say that when you open Salesforce, it looks very daunting at first because there's a lot of information, there's a lot of boxes. The new interface that they're putting in is a little bit more user-friendly in that it looks a little bit more familiar and like other things we do online. And I think that's going to be great. But once you see that you only have to use a small section of what you're seeing on that interface, it becomes very easy. It's a matter of clicking in the search bar, typing in a name, and then filling out a form that is literally laid out in front of you. So what we've done a couple of times here, because our staff are fairly new and we both left for a time and then came back. And so the staff here were not trained. And so what we've done is Jennifer will come in and do a PowerPoint, much like what you saw. And then we walk through the steps on the actual database. We couldn't do that because there's too much information that we couldn't share with you. But once you walk them through, it is really, I would say that within, we hired someone in July and she's fairly competent, probably she started at the end of July. And by the middle of August, she was feeling very comfortable in there. You know, there were gaps in her knowledge as far as, well, why do, you know, I didn't know I had to check that box, but that's a matter of training and remembering what it was you have to all enter. So I would say it was fairly a couple of weeks of a half an hour to an hour of training once a week. And then the practice of doing it, it was fairly easy to pick up, in my opinion. And we really didn't have that many complaints with our staff, except that sometimes they would get lost on where, you know, well, I didn't know, I remember you saying that, but I couldn't remember where to find it. But like I said, this new Lightning interface I'm finding it to be a lot more user-friendly than the interface that I first learned on.
Thank you. What did you transition from?
Oh, it was Classic. It was Salesforce. Oh,
no, before that.
Pro.
FileMaker Pro that was very daunting.
I did not know FileMaker Pro though, so.
Okay. And then I had another question about, I know that there is also a dashboard feature that you can, did you use dashboards or do you
I am
utilize them?
Yes. And I am learning more about them. So
they're cool.
They're very nice as far as tracking things that we need to make sure that need to be done. So, and that is also helps with the training because now you know where the holes are and you know what to train on.
Well, so. And aren't the dashboards where we can put a preset report there? So I can have Jennifer set up a report for me that I can click on that. Click run report and it will update everything on what all of my parent consultants have done over the past period of time. And it's right there when I first log in. So it's been very handy. And once we get that up there and our new interface going, it's going to be even easier. And you can leave, I mean, you can kind of manipulate it to where you can have your tasks on there so that there are reminders for your daily tasks or, you know, depending on how your use of it.
Did you integrate it with Zoom?
Like we're working on that.
We're working on that right now with Sputnik because that will be great. I am very excited. And then SMS texting too, is we're working with them. It's another application, another app.
So I see, I don't know. I know Kay and Robert were both about to say something.
Go ahead.
I'm Kay from PHP. I'm just wondering, is there like a calendar feature in your Salesforce that you can like have event recorded on there, or it has to be integrated with some other external calendar? like Google?
Well, you have, yeah, that's it. We haven't really utilized the calendar, but there is one. So, I mean, there is the option to do so. We haven't used it because we use our website calendar that is on our website, obviously. But so we haven't looked at integrating that. I mean, there's so many options that you can do. And like I said, I came back in January and I feel like I'm really messing with everybody by making these changes right now. So that might be something in the future that we look at.
Robert, did you want to say something?
I think Elena Sanchez had a question.
Oh, Elena.
Yeah, sorry, because
I love your name, Elena.
Yeah, me too. I have to go to another meeting, but one of the things that I want to ask, maybe because I don't understand Salesforce at all, but if there's a way, like for example, if one of the family resource specialists did something wrong and then mess up the whole program, can they do that if they?
No.
You can't mess up the whole program.
No.
You're locked
With
out.
Access is what we use in Access, and sometimes we have some nightmares there, but that doesn't happen in Salesforce.
No, you can have restrictions put onto the people who are entering, whereas like I'm the administrator and so is Elena. We are the ones that really could mess it up, but that's not given to everybody else. So you have, privileges basically.
But it is a possibility that if they don't know how to do it, they can enter the wrong data.
If they enter the wrong data, yes, they could enter the wrong data, but it's deletable. So you could get rid of it and start over, or get in there and manipulate it to do what you needed it to do.
I mean, there are holes that we have, and that's with any database. You're going to have dirty data, and it's trying to keep up on that as my job, and I look at all of that. So if you have a good administrator who is doing that work, then it's not as bad.
So I guess in essence, if like the information, if it's a lot of it's preset, like it's a drop down or there's checkable options, the fields don't lock. So if someone selected the wrong place to refer to or something, it's something that can be changed, but maybe with like administrative rights, right?
Yeah, most of the time you can just go back into that case or into that person and hit edit, and it will allow you to change that field. So yeah, if you were to put in a family by accident as a professional, you could go back in and just click without an admin, so that you don't have to have someone there all the time. But the only time we really have to have Jennifer do anything is when there's a duplicate, and then Jennifer has to go in and find the duplicates. And that process is a little more difficult than an ordinary user would be able to do. But for the most part, I mean, we've been using it for 6 or 7 years now. We've never broke it. And, we've had some mistakes, but it's been fairly friendly.
I think it's Elena Sanchez. It's, so your access or your other things are a computer file, right? That's local somewhere.
Yes.
That, like a Word document, right? And so, yeah, if someone selects the whole Word document and presses delete, it's all gone, right?
Right.
But this is not like that. This is cloud-based. It's very complicated.
How it's out a family.
You got to really know how to delete things to mess it up.
No, my
don't have to be an expert at Salesforce.
Yeah, just because what you explained, Elena, is my assumption is that you dedicate certain amount of hours daily for the administrator to be able to find all those loops or holes of people inputting wrong things and things like that.
Yeah. Yes, but it's also the training that you give and keeping up on that training, because, when I was here full-time before, everybody would come to me with questions, and if they didn't know something, they would ask, or if I found something wrong, I would give a training on right away, and then I was gone, and then that's when big holes happen. You have to have somebody who's there constantly supporting and training your staff that Like I said, they need to know what's required and drill it into them on a regular basis. So it's second nature and they just know that, oh yeah, this is something that's needed. I have to make sure I put it in.
So let me show real quick, just for the sake of clarification, Elena, so that you can see what the page looks like. There's no identifiable information on here. But this is what a new case would look like. So we actually go in and you can add in the name here. Is that big enough for you all?
Mhm.
And then we would have the different, is this right?
No,
This looks different.
go to your home.
Create new view. Sorry. Hang on one second.
Okay, or go to
Here.
Contacts.
Create, oh, that says create new view. Sorry, mine is like that. I think
Sorry,
I'm
right there.
signed in as the wrong, I'm signed in as the administrator, so I'm seeing something.
There you go.
There it is. Okay, let me share it again. Okay. It won't let me increase it for you. Here we go. So this is more what it would look like. You're just entering in fields. And this creates the family. So you have that parent here, and then you have the child information there, and those are all the data fields that Jennifer talked about. And then you save it, and once you save it, it has there save and create a case. And then in that case, there's a box like this that you can just enter the notes in that you're typing in and hit save, and then you've created a case. So it's super easy. The case has more drop down menus on what you were helping them for, and why was there why was there a referral, or where did the referral come from, or where did you refer to, and we have all those boxes in there. But it makes it super easy that it's all fields that your person will, just choose and keep on going. We have, where was it referred to from, is an early start, and we just go down and click everything so that there's no way to really mess it up. You might put in the wrong data, but then you go back in, you hit edit, and you go again. Does that make sense? Does that help at all? Yeah, okay.
Perfect.
Hi.
Yeah.
Another question. How long did it take Sputnik to develop the new system and for you guys to migrate over?
You see how good her memory is.
Yeah, well, they were new when I started also. So since they are now have helped other PTIs, which is really close to what everybody's doing here, I would say it would be, depending on all the funding requirements, I would say 3 months, maybe, because we also had to import. So we were able to export all of our data from FileMaker Pro, and then there was data cleanup because that's the time to do it, right? And that was probably what took the longest, is to clean all the data before you give it to them. So,
Well, and right now we're in the middle of the upgrade. So we're going from the platform that you just saw to upgrading, it's like an update on any other app where they're putting a new face on it. And we started working with them probably the middle to the end of January, and we'll be implementing it the end of this month. And so all of that has taken them, because they're going to export all of our current information into this new platform, and then rearrange it is what we've been working on recently. And so making sure that you have all the fields that you want, that the fields are doing what you want them to do, all the drop down menus. It has taken a little bit of time, but they've been great in making sure, and Jennifer's so organized, she put it all in a spreadsheet, and it's, it's pretty easy to do.
So that's the new Lightning interface that you're talking about, right? But
Yeah.
I guess underneath is probably still the same Salesforce database. And so you started with the nonprofit service pack and then migrating to this newer interface, I guess.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we did a lot of data. A lot of the information that we were collecting was out of date. And so we took like half of it out and then put a quarter back in of that new stuff, you know? So.
It's been a fun process.
But I'm really passionate about data. I really think that if we all could collect, at a level of the same information and make change with what we're doing, it would be just my dream. So.
Great. Any last questions?
Just to ask, it sounds like you have absolutely no complaints about the system, like it's working for you well.
Yes.
Nothing.
Coming from FileMaker Pro and then going and leaving and working on another database and then coming back home to Salesforce has been just a relief.
And the reports, when you run them, just so you know, they're exportable into Excel. So then a lot of the times we can file, filter down all the information. So you get this big report and then go, okay, for this particular activity or event or a report that we're doing a special report for, we can take out, we want all the unduplicated, and then you can do that all in Excel, which makes it very easy. But once I figured out why we're collecting all the data, because when I first started it, it was like, this is ridiculous. But learning all of that back in 2014 to now, I wouldn't have any complaints. I worked in some clinical databases, and those were a nightmare compared to this one.
I have one last question. So let's say down the road next year, you get a new grant from a particular agency, and they're asking for additional pieces of information that you don't necessarily now have in your database. Are you able to go ahead and modify the database, or is that something that the Sputnik needs to do?
Well, I can say that I am going to be certified administrator. I'm going to take a course in May that will help my knowledge and hopefully save us money in the long run. Yeah. And I'll be able to do things to a certain point, but like any program, Excel, Microsoft, whatever, it's such a deep dark hole, right? There's so many things that you can do. I would love to be that person to be able to do that, but I will only be able to take it so far. But I know that it'll be cost effective, me learning and becoming a Salesforce administrator and saving that money. So making changes to a degree, but when there's a flow that is validations and all of that, it gets above my head.
As of now, though, can you create a new field on your own?
I will be able to in the future.
But not right now with the knowledge that you have. So we can't put a new field in there. However, if say we needed to collect information on ethnicity and the particular ethnicity that the new grant was asking for, and there was a drop down menu, because right now we have a drop down, she can add another name to the drop down. So those types of things she can add right now. But if you're asking for a reworking of complete fields, like, okay, we don't collect on whether or not this person has ever been imprisoned, so we need a completely new field, a new drop down box or a new text field, that's something that she wouldn't be able to do. But so there are small manipulations that you can make, but the bigger manipulations, like adding a checkbox or that sort of thing, would be something that Sputnik would do for us. And we contract with them for, is it $1,200 a year?
Yeah.
For a certain amount of hours to help do those little things for us if we need them.
Right. But adding a budget to your database, I think, is a must. Really should have that because, data is so fluid. So.
And the world runs on data these days.
And data is delicious.
That's right.
Yeah. And
Great.
I know we're out of time, but I just wanted to say that one of the reason that a lot of FRCs have Salesforce is because, and you all were just on with PIP, Family Voices California, through the National Family Voices Agency, was able to get some funds or at least a deal, a deep discount on Salesforce, a general platform that actually what Elena, what Rao has, what we have, what some other groups have, that was developed for the family-to-family health information centers nationwide. So it was developed for all those organizations. So we were able to buy it from them through Sputnik for a discount. I think it was about $2,500. And what we had to pay Sputnik for was that our data migration and any customization we wanted. And we were able to do that because we had some extra money in our budget. And so we've had it for probably 8 years now, maybe more. And it's actually worked very well for us. But I think the great thing, like Eileen didn't do that, she developed it on her own. It is very customizable, of course, like Elena was saying, if you have something totally different that you want to collect, because they have developed reports for us. So when I do the Family Voices report, I just press, well, I don't do it. When Martha does it, she clicks, she presses a button and it does the report. She doesn't have to do any math. She doesn't have to do anything. And so that's the beauty of it. That's the power of it.
Yeah.
And if you're thinking based on today that you might want to be a part of Family Voices, it would be great to explore.
It's a perk.
And explore Salesforce.
Wonderful. Well, I hope that was helpful to everyone. I know we lost a lot of people because they had other meetings. If we would like to continue doing this, I'm all for it. I will help support the next meeting as well. Diana wanted to share, but she had to leave early. So thank you, Elena and Jennifer, for sharing your PowerPoint, and Eileen, who already did leave. But yeah, I will work on a second meeting. Does it sound like something we want to continue to do, at least another meeting for, and here, another way an FRC is using Salesforce? I will go ahead and work on that. And this is recorded, so I will be sending this out.
If you have specific questions, I mean, either I or Jennifer will be happy to answer more or tell you how we did whatever it is that you're trying to do.